Jazz from the City. I'm your host, Larry Dunn. Today we feature the sounds of the classic jazz stompers.
Well, Joe Oliver had been a butler in New Orleans at the turn of the century, decided he was going to be the leading jazz cornet player of the world, and he became the leading jazz cornet player of the world, known as King Oliver. That was a tune he recorded back in 1924, written by his little protege that he brought with him from New Orleans, Louis Armstrong, and Louis's wife, Lil Hardin, who was the piano player in that great band. Wonderful stuff. Another great jazz musician of that era, the self-styled originator of jazz music, was Ferdinand Jelly Roll Morton, also from New Orleans. Here's a tune that he wrote and recorded in 1926 with his Red Hot Pepper Orchestra called The Black Bottom Stomp. played jazz hot in the early days. Jelly Roll Morton's Black Bottom Stomp, a wonderful band, the Red Hot Peppers Recording Orchestra on RCA Victor Records. Over on Columbia Records in the same golden year of 1926, there was another flock of New Orleans musicians, kind of fed off both the bands we've just kind of praised in sound. Johnny Dodds was the clarinet player with the old King Oliver Band. Kid Ory, the trombone player, had come back from Los Angeles where he had been playing. George Mitchell on cornet was on the Red Hot Peppers records, replaced Louis Armstrong in what had been the Hot Five, along with Johnny St. Cyr on the banjo and Lil Hardin on the piano, to make a bunch of records under the name of the New Orleans Wanderers, a bunch of New Orleans musicians in Chicago, the South Side, 1926. Here's a blues for one of the lovely streets back in the French Quarter of New Orleans called the Perdido Street Blues. Ah, lovely old jazz. And that was the route it took from New Orleans up to Chicago and then spread out all over the world. Kansas City, you name it, New York, it was everywhere. It was right here in Dayton, Ohio. And indeed, In this little corner of America, back in the early 20s, there was a lot of wonderful jazz. Down in Hamilton, we had the Stockton Club with Bix Beiderbecke playing, the young man with a horn. Here's a tune that was written by Bix's friend Hoagie Carmichael from over in Indiana, recorded by Bix, first with his Wolverine Orchestra from down here in Hamilton, and then with the great Paul Whiteman Orchestra. Kind of a lively tune from the white side of jazz called the Riverboat Shuffle. Riverboat Shuffle, Hoagie Carmichael time. Well, is it time to introduce the entourage from this orchestra? I expect it is. All right. This group, which you will happen to find right here in Dayton, Ohio, off the TV every Wednesday night at a lovely spot called Longfellow's Tavern out on Far Hills Avenue, a little north of Whip Road, is made up of a bunch of aficionados of early jazz, as you might have gathered thus far. Over here on the far right, we've got on the reeds Eric Greiffenhagen from Yellow Springs, Ohio, lover of Johnny Dodds, Jimmy Noon, Omer Simeon, all those fine old clarinet players. Next to him, also from Yellow Springs, we have Chris Moore, the young man with a horn, the guy that Kirk Douglas was trying to imitate when he got into that Dorothy Baker movie a few years ago. Little echoes of Muggsy Spanier and King Oliver, all the early cornet players before the trumpet took over their place in jazz orchestras. On the trombone, we've got Gordy Moore. Gordy Moore from way down south in West Carrollton, Ohio. Teaches biology in his spare time, and when he's not finding the parameciums under the slides or whatever they do, he's out playing the trombone and a kind of a Jack Teagarden fan. Lovely stuff. Denny Snyder over there on the tuba. He's got a monogram tuba for this special occasion. Keeps that bass line going. You know, all the bands started out with these things in them, and then the big string bass took over. Benny Moten's band gave way to Count Basie, and the banjo and the tuba disappeared. Then came the string bass and the guitar, and the rest is history. But there's still some of us love that old Benny Moten sound, too. Back here on the piano from Columbus, Ohio, we have Nick Moore. Nick Moore, pound for pound, one of the great young professors of the old-time piano in the state of Ohio or elsewhere. And then we've got a special friend with us this evening on the drums, the great Joe Collier, legendary drummer from right here in Dayton, Ohio, played with Count Basie, with Dizzy Gillespie. Now he's getting back to the mother lode here, right? The old-fashioned stuff. Dave Greer on the banjo. Hope you like this kind of music. We'll be happy to provide you a little more of it. Why don't we swing on? I'll tell you what, we've played you some straight jazz tunes from both of the streams that led into what we call classic jazz, the flowering, just before everything went into big band arrangements and swing. There was also another stream that went into it that kind of fed off jazz and then fed back into it, and that's what they call nowadays hot dance music. If you saw some like it hot, well, there was Marilyn Monroe portraying one of the crazy pop hot singers of the day, Helen Kane, the boop boop be doop girl. Here's a tune that she recorded in the early 30s. We don't quite do it with the boop boop to doop style because we just don't seem to have that set of vocal cords in the band. But it's a nice tune, and it gives you a little philosophy. These tunes had a little meaning to them. The kind of thing that every man and every woman is thinking about as they wander through whatever social affairs they have to wander through. Oh, honey, oh, honey, I wonder why you act so funny when we should be making love. I'm willing, oh, so willing, but nothing I do seems thrilling. I'm down on my knees, baby. I'm asking you, please, babe. There's the moon way up high. Hear you, well, here am I. Oh, do something. Ain't been hugged, ain't been kissed. I want to see just what I missed. Oh, do something. Got a bench in a park in a bench, I know. I love that bench, love that park, oh honey, you know I love you so. There's a moon way up high, oh baby, now here am I. Do something. something? They don't make love songs like that anymore. I don't know why. Pretty tune, pretty tune. We're going to carry you back now to one that's a kind of a warhorse of jazz, very popular tune. We like to play it when Joe's around because we like to give him a chance to beat up on that drum set a little bit and get a little something going. An old tune been played 1,000 different ways by 1,000 different bands, but what's wrong with 1,001? Music's only as old as the moment that it's played, or at least that's our philosophy of it. Here it is, the Limehouse Blues. nice quiet tune. Limehouse Blues from way back in about 1924. Here's a tune that's even older than that. We occasionally, the kind of band or band of time in which this band picks up its tunes, we won't say we play in that era because we play right now. But our meat and drink and our repertoire is basically from the 1920s, the early 1930s, take you up to maybe 33, 34. Stretch it a little bit beyond that if there's a good enough tune for a small band to play. And once in a while we'll go way back in time. This one takes us back before jazz really got in, when they were kind of vaudeville and ragtime tunes. But it's a pretty tune and was recorded by the great Clarence Williams, a kind of an unsung hero of jazz who put together a lot of different musical aggregations and recording dates, was a real entrepreneur of jazz in the 20s. Pretty tune called Breeze. Breeze that blowed my babe away. I've had the blues all day since early morn. You came a-tipping through the trees. Yeah, when I woke up this morning, you were gone, gone. A breeze that stole her from my side. She was my loving bride. Hear my please, breeze. Hear me begging on my knees. Bring her back, sweet evening breeze. Bring my baby back to me. breeze that blew my babe away. I've had the blues all day since early morn. Oh, you came tipping through the tree. Yeah, when I woke up this morning, she was gone. Oh, yeah, breeze that blowed up from my side, she was my loving bride. Now hear my please, breeze, hear me begging on my knees. Bring her back, sweet evening breeze. You just bring my baby back to me. Ah, yeah. Well, they made pretty tunes all the way from then up to now. Another nice tune. Time to give you a tune that was recorded by an unusual band, recorded by Benny Goodman's favorite clarinet player. The one that he idolized was the great Jimmy Noon, another one of the New Orleans clarinet players, nice round tone. Had a wonderful band with Earl Hines on the piano, Joe Poston on the alto sax, no horns in the band, back in the Apex Club in Chicago, 1928. Recorded just a bunch of beautiful stuff. Well, we don't have the same instrumentation that he had, a little more traditional stuff. But we'll play a tune that they recorded. It's another nice thought, along with the love tunes like Do Something and Breeze Blew My Baby Away and all that kind of thing. A little kind of a braggadocio tune called 4 or 5 Times. Well, we're going to get the soprano saxophone out. I don't want anybody to be thinking that this is maybe somebody's saxophone that got stepped on, or this is some kind of toy that was purchased in Woolworths. This is the real thing. Sidney Bechet, you may remember, is the world's leading soprano saxophonist. He played a straight one, but there's a bunch of them that play these funny little curled up ones too. They're kind of nice because they fit in your hip pocket. A lot easier to carry around than a tenor. All right, 4 or 5 times. 4 or 5 times. 4 or 5 times. You know I like doing things right 4 or 5 times. Maybe I'll sigh, maybe I'll cry. When I die, I'm gonna try to do 4 or 5 times. I like to dance, I like to sing. When I try, yeah, I try about any old thing. Maybe I'll sigh, maybe I'll cry. When I die, I'm gonna try to do 4 or 5 times.
Dave, there's some great tunes there.
Well, they're wonderful tunes. They've been around for quite a while, about as long as you and I put together, I expect.
Well, I guess so. I'm impressed at your history. You know so much about the music itself and the dates and who used to play those tunes.
Well, it's a wonderful history, you know. It's a real part of America. This is America's one great form of native art, and there have been a wonderful generation and generations of musicians playing it. And it kind of goes from generation to generation. It has right here in Dayton, too. We've had good jazz in this town forever and ever. A lot of wonderful musicians in Dayton.
Well, tell me, how long have you had your group together?
Well, it's, I guess, about a decade now. In this particular and precise form, about 4 years. I've been playing at least once a week someplace in the city of Dayton. And it's like any other kind of music. It becomes an acquired taste. You start to listen to a bit of this stuff and say, hey, that's not too bad. And then you listen a little bit more of it and say, that's pretty good.
Tell us, how long you been playing the banjo?
Well, since I was nothing but a child, yeah. You'd think I'd be a lot better after all these years of fooling with it, but I won't tell you how long because it's been a fairly long time.
Why did you happen to pick up the banjo rather than a guitar or something like that?
Well, I expect I really got started, and I think all of us that are in the band get started because you get involved in this kind of music when you're young. When in the late 40s in Dayton, Gene Mayall's Dixieland Rhythm Kings were holding forth at the Top Flight Club at the Traffic Circle on Dixie, and that was the era at the end of World War II when there was a great revival of early jazz going on, discovering old musicians and playing the old tunes again. So I kind of got into it in high school with that band and followed them around and all the other jazz musicians in Dayton, Cincinnati, Columbus, quite a few years now.
Is Dayton your home?
Dayton is my home, yeah. And I'm lucky. I'm like little Margaret O'Brien, and meet me in St. Louis. I'm just lucky to be born in my favorite city.
You know, people are finding out more and more about the history of jazz and here in the city of Dayton. You know, it's been around for quite some time, and it's not just one place like New Orleans, but it's here too.
A lot of wonderful musicians here. Wilberforce was a great source of great jazz musicians in the 20s and thereafter, and there have been just a lot of wonderful musicians from here. Hope we get everybody to come out and listen to it live. It's a dying art to try to keep it alive and in clubs, because who wants to pay for a 7-piece band? But we have some fun on Wednesday nights. Hope some of your audience will come out and join us at Longfellow's Tavern out on South 48. Have a little old-time jazz.
Well, after hearing this, I'm sure they're going to come out now.
Well, I hope so. We'll be there playing it.
All right, I'll let you get back to your music here.
All right, we thought we might kind of get toward a wrap up here with a couple of love tunes. One that was written by Lil Hardin, Louis Armstrong's second wife. We talked a little bit about her as the piano player in King Oliver's Creole Jazz Band with little Louis, who was age 21, coming up from New Orleans to play. Here's a tune that they recorded together in 1925 with what they called the Hot Five Orchestra, called My Heart, a little love song to Louis Armstrong.
Go to it.
Armstrong. She went on, she was at Louis' funeral, a wonderful, wonderful lady of jazz. Played in South Chicago for years and years. A very well-trained musician, one of the only school musicians that early bit. Yeah, wasn't she somebody? Lil Armstrong, a little hardened in those days. Well, we're going to wind up. We just have had a lovely time playing some of these tunes. Hope you had a lovely time listening to some of them. Here's another what we call a hot dance tune. It was recorded by little Benny Goodman back in about 1928, before even he ever thought of swing music. Kind of a lively little thing called Oh Baby, Oh Baby. I can never feel the way I do. Look to your sweet eyes of blue, oh baby. You know I never had a thrill till I held your hand. Know what it is, but I understand. Something new, different, grand, oh baby. When we kiss, I kind of miss. Deep down deep in my heart, I don't mind. There's nothing more. Gotta live for. What if I should die? Travel to where? Have to climb that heavenly stair. Be terrible if you weren't there, oh baby.
To the classic jazz sounds, the classic jazz stompers. I'm your host, Larry Dunn, and remember, there's always good jazz from the city. That's Oh Baby, and that's us for today. Come out and see us at the Longfellows Tavern any Wednesday night from 7:30 to 10:30.
You'll find the tunes you just heard coupled with about another 600 or so, all the popular hits of yesteryear and all the great jazz tunes from Jelly Roll Morton, King Oliver, Sidney Bechet, Jimmy Noon, you name them. We'll try to stir them up for you. Pleasure to be with you. Thank you, Access 30.